So welcome everybody, and we are now the ninth chapter of the way of the ways of the Bodhisattva, Bodhicaryavatara. So this is the chapter on wisdom. And now the wisdom, it is said, now wisdom here, I think I have to say that when we are talking about wisdom, I think they are talking about the paramita of wisdom. So out of all the 6 paramitas, the wisdom chapter begins with saying that everything that we went through or we practiced till now, that means the first 6 paramitas, including generating the bodhicitta and all those things, is to actually to develop or to cultivate the paramita of wisdom. So therefore, the paramita of wisdom is regarded very important, most important in a way, because from Buddhist point of view, to completely transform this samsaric state of mind, you have to have wisdom. Only with wisdom you can do that, and without wisdom you cannot do that. So therefore wisdom becomes very important. What is exactly wisdom, or prajna? Prajna, or sometimes we call it gyan also, but prajna means gyan. Well, there are different translations and different. The jnana has different meanings at different levels in Sanskrit, which when translated into Tibetan, especially in Buddhism, and then it is translated as yeshi, which has a different connotation than jnana, sometimes meaning knowledge. Now prajna, pra is a prefix which means the best or something extraordinary. So prajna means like the wisdom or knowledge that is the ultimate or very, very special or the best kind of knowledge. That is prajna. Now this prajna, the wisdom, then in Buddhist terms, it's explained usually as 2. The relative wisdom, or maybe you can call it the 2 truths. The wisdom is the 2 truths. And 2 truths is, the truth of the relative truth and ultimate truth. These 2 truths. So, there are 2 truths. The way we understand or we see the truth is described in these two ways: relative way, relative truth, and ultimate truth. The relative truth is the way we, the way we see now as true, in a kind of a worldly way also, but not necessarily only worldly way, but the things as they appear, and we find it correct, we find it true, but it's not completely as it is in an ultimate way. This is what we call as the relative truth. All the kind of matters that happens according to its causes and conditions and the effects, but it is not, if we analyze it in a deep way, it's not as it is. These are what we call relative truth. Relative truth is very important in Buddhism. Like, even the karma is relative truth, and the positive actions, negative actions, its results, life after life, all these things are relative truth. It is true in a way, but it is not ultimately true. The ultimate truth is something that, however much we analyze it, however much we, explore the way things are, however, the things really the way it is, if we see, if we understand, or if we experience it the same way, that's the ultimate truth. So ultimate truth is our way of perceiving how things are and how they are in the ultimate way. If they come together, that's the experience of ultimate truth. That is what we call as the prajna, or the ultimate wisdom. And the things appear, and it has its own causes and conditions. It's appear, but if we look deeply, it doesn't. We can't find exactly, it's the way it is different from how it appears. That is the relative truth. So therefore, every perception, every experience we have is therefore explained in these two truths, relative truth and ultimate truth. Now in this chapter, we are very much concerned about the ultimate truth, because that's what the prajna is. That is what, because unless we experience the way things really are, whether it's concerning how I am, concerning how everything else is, then then we are somehow deluded. So therefore, we will not be able to say that we have prajna. We cannot truly, see the ultimate way things remain. So therefore, it would be difficult to be totally free from all the delusions and completely get rid of our negative emotions, because we still have what we call as we talk about three things, ignorance. Now, ignorance is, as long as we have not completely experience of the way things ultimately are, then we still have ignorance. And as long as we have ignorance, then we react with aversion, attachment, jealousy, pride, and all the, deluded way. And therefore, our samsaric state of mind cannot be fully transformed. So therefore, that wisdom, actually ultimate wisdom, is extremely important. They also, although this is not very much, explained in this chapter, but there is also, wisdom which is not ultimate wisdom. Like to understand how to deal with situations, how to deal with, how to see and understand and solve our problems, in this life. All these things is wisdom, but this is kind of not ultimate wisdom. This is, you can call it worldly wisdom, which is extremely important. But what we are talking about here is about the ultimate wisdom. Now, ultimate wisdom here is explained in two kind of ways. One is selflessness of the self, and then selflessness of the phenomena. Sometimes, selflessness of the old dharma. Selflessness of the self is, something that is very common to all Buddhist schools. And this is, what we call anatma, anatta or anatma. That, if you look at what I am, what is it that I call me? Because this is very important, because we always, I am me, and therefore, everything is other there. I am very much there, because therefore, something nice to me, I must have it. Something not nice to me, I must not have it. So therefore, aversion and attachment, and then all the, all the samsaric state of mind comes up. So therefore, to understand what really I am, and what is it that I called me? So to fully understand that is to understand the selflessness of the self, because what is it that I am? Is it my body? Is it my feelings? Is it my mind? Is it my, what is it? So if you look at, look at your body, and where is that me? Because body is not one thing. It's made of, generally like 4 elements or 5 elements, or sometimes we talk about 6 elements. But, then if you look more deeply, it's made of millions and billions of cells, and where exactly or which exactly which cell or which something that is me. There is nothing I can call totally me. Not only that, but in all the what we call 5 aggregates, whether it's my my body, my feeling, my perception, my consciousness, there also, if you try to find each of these, there is you can't really find something called me, different, separate, or together in these aggregates. So therefore, this way, if you look, then to understand that what I call me, of course, there is feelings, there is perception, there is all these things, but there is nothing called me, totally, on its own, separate, and something that is, that is truly existing on its own. We function very much because we function interdependently. What I am is an interdependent, changing all the time, ongoing. This moment of me is dissolving, and next moment of all the things coming, even my consciousness is not one, but moment by moment. My feeling is not one, but moment by moment. What I am is a little bit like the river that I see is flowing. We say this is the river, which has been flowing for like thousands of years, but actually, what is a river? There is the water that's flowing at this moment doesn't remain another second, or after every second it's a totally different buck of water that's flowing. But altogether we say this is the river. This is the same river, but this is not the same river actually. So I was also a little bit like that. And if I understand me a little bit like that, then our habitual tendency to hold on to a me in the past, what happened to me, last year, what happened to me yesterday, what happened to me last life, all these things, that same me, and I'm hurt because I was, something happened, in my childhood, in my youth, in my, yesterday. All these things, if I really understand, deeply, those things can become less, and then same in the future. So therefore, when I understand the selflessness nature of things, I would become much more, free. I would become much more, much less, attached or have aversion or clinging to things of the past or future and even of the present moment. And this, if we can truly, through meditation, through practice, have a deep understanding of this self, we can become, kind of, more or less free from the samsaric state of mind. So the selflessness of the self is very important, and that's very common to all Buddhist schools. Then there is a selflessness of the phenomena. It's not just talking about me, talking about individual, but Actually, if you look a little bit deeply, not only me, but everything else, everything, when we talk about the phenomena or Dharma, one meaning of the Dharma is everything that I can think about. So, anything that we can think about is also selfless like that. It doesn't have a truly existing thing. And this is quite, not very detailed, but a little bit detailedly explained in this chapter. So this chapter is therefore regarded very important because from that point of view, that it explains this, the true nature of, or the true reality, how things really are in the ultimate way, and through reasoning, practice and both reasoning. Practice, what we call the four mindfulness. For mindfulness, we can do through the different ways of doing the for mindfulness. For mindfulness is mindfulness of the mind, mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of the feelings, mindfulness of the mind, mindfulness of all the phenomena. These are the four mindfulness. We can do it in a more kind of shamatha way, or meditative way, like we just focus our mind on the body, on our feelings, on our mind and things like that. But it can also be an analysis. So in this particular chapter, the mindfulness, the four mindfulness is more in the sense of analyzing. Mindfulness of the body is we look at the body, analyze it, what body is, what is relationship with body and me, and what body is made of, how does it exist, and things like that. And same with the feeling and what is mind, and things like that. So this is the kind of analytical meditation, in this trying to find the true nature or the ultimate wisdom in the nature of everything. So this is one thing. Then also this discusses, much more kind of logical way, analyzing, anything, each kind of anything, whether it's whatever, it can be yourself, it can be mind, it can be some matter, it can be anything. You look at it and then you analyze the cause. Is it something with cause? Is it something without cause? And what are the causes? And things like that. So whether everything is how all these things are happening, are created, or is there a creator or not? And if it is a creator, then what is the nature of that creator, and what is the nature of the creator, and things like that, and also the causes, and if there is absolutely no causes or no conditions and just happening or not, and if the causes, then we say that everything is because of causes. Without the causes, then they cannot be. But what is the relationship between the cause and the and the result, and how exactly this happens? The cause and then the result happens. So it analyzes. It looks at the causes. It looks at the results. It looks at how things really exist. So in these three, it's a very long kind of analysis, lots of debate and things like that. But when we analyze everything or anything, how this thing is first created, or what are the causes, and without causes cannot be, but what are the causes, relationship with the result, and how actually the cause generates the results. And we find actually that, the causes has to be there. Without these causes, there can't be result. But then, it's very magical how the causes create the result. And if you look at the result also, is the result in the cause, or is the result not in the cause? And things like that, when the result, it's already there before it is, created, or it's not there before it's created. And when you look at something, then, how it is there, does it exist as one thing or many things? And, because you can't have something that is totally one, but then each one has many parts, and each part, is it one or many? And then if you look deeply, you can't find anything or anything that is truly existing as one. And if there's nothing truly existing as one, how can you say there is many? Because many is made of many one. So therefore, through this understanding, through this investigation, through this analysis, you try to find that the way things exist, everything exists, is a little bit like a dream, a little bit like a magic, a miracle. They are very much there. Everything is there, and everything is there, and it can manifest in any different ways. And this has to be caused by its relevant causes and conditions. But if you look at anything, whether we look at the causes, we look at the result, whether you look at at a particular entity, everything is very what can you say, interdependent, very very relatively, it exists relatively, not independently. Everything is relatively existing, dependently existing, so therefore their nature is, not really existing on its own, but what is, the term given in Buddhist term is emptiness, shunyata, because you can't find anything which is totally, truly existing on its own, and truly one, and truly independent. And because of that, anything is possible. Everything appears. Everything, manifests. Anything can, when the right causes and conditions come together, anything can manifest. And that's the way things are. That's the way the whole, everything is. So to deeply understand that, if you deeply understand that, then, I am also like that. Everything is like that. Everything is possible. The causes and conditions possible. If you do positive actions, it has positive result. If you do negative actions, it will have negative result. But if you look deeply into it, they also doesn't really, exist. There is nothing called truly positive. There's nothing called truly negative. There's nothing called, Actually, even me, there's nothing called samsara, there's nothing called nirvana, all of these are, in ultimate nature, emptiness. But when you say emptiness, it's not something that doesn't, it's not there, or it doesn't matter, or anything like that. Everything. It's so. That's why they said that the more we understand the nature of emptiness, the more we become, what can you say, more mindful of our actions. The positive, negative, and all that. We become more responsible. This is, sometimes it is said that if you study and practice and meditate on the emptiness, or the ultimate wisdom, or the paramita of wisdom, if you seem to become less careful about your actions, about your karma, about your compassion to others, about caring for the others, that means you didn't understand. That means something went wrong in your understanding of the emptiness. But when you study and practice and meditate on emptiness and on the ultimate wisdom, and then you seem to become more compassionate, more caring about your actions, more responsible about what you are doing and what how it affects your future and affects the future of other people. If you become more careful about that, that indicates that your understanding and practice of emptiness is going in the right way. So therefore, it is. I think it's very important to understand this, because sometimes, if we study and a little bit analyze the emptiness, we can also a little bit become nihilistic. And if we become nihilistic, that means something went wrong. It's not truly we understood really right, or in a good way. So this is the kind of, I don't know, I can't. It's a very long and very complicated, actually, chapter. Of course, usually there are lots of debates in it, because there are lots of different questions asked by different philosophical schools in India, and also different philosophical Buddhist schools also, in India at that time. And so therefore, it's a very kind of, very pithy and very, what can you say, deep, profound, and, therefore quite a difficult chapter. So I think at this moment only I can say that much, maybe. So I don't know if this helps actually, but I think I will stop here, because the time is also telling me that I'm going beyond my time limit. So this is more or less the chapter on wisdom. And of course, if you want to study more, I've been trying to teach this in a little bit more detailed way in Bodhicarya, the Zoom teachings. But there also, of course, I try to be I didn't go into the debates at all, because it's too difficult to go through the debates, because then you have to understand all the philosophical schools of other, and then that becomes very complicated, and and I also can't say that I really understand all of them. So therefore, I think I'll stop here, and if you have any questions, I'll try to explain from my limited knowledge.
So if anybody has any questions, then could put them into the chat. We'll see what Rinpoche's got to say to clarify and help us understand better. Have this notion of ultimate wisdom. We have a question here.
Okay.
Saying, could you give a brief explanation of the difference between awareness and consciousness?
Now these, different translators translate in many different ways into English. So it's not easy to say, what they are referring to when they say sometimes consciousness and sometimes awareness, and then also, different, one word can also mean different things in different, perspectives in different sections. So I cannot exactly say, what I am going to say will cover everything. But generally, I think, when we talk about consciousness, we are talking about, the consciousness that we have, our like eye consciousness, ear consciousness, like that, our mind consciousness. See, we have this consciousness, that mind, consciousness and mind may be similar consciousness. Namrichipa. The Tibetan Namrichipa is usually called consciousness, I think. Awareness is, what is the, what does consciousness have? That's the awareness. Consciousness have one of the main, characteristic of consciousness is that awareness. We have the awareness. But many times when we talk about awareness, we are talking about, this is another, the Tibetan word is shijin. We talk about two things. One is that tenpa and shijin, that is mindfulness and awareness. So this awareness is, to be aware of what is going on, for those who have consciousness. I mean, everybody, all the sentient beings have consciousness. If you don't have consciousness, then you are not a sentient being. But we can be aware and we cannot be aware, so awareness is that if I have awareness, then I'm aware what is going on, I'm, I know, I am conscious, I am aware of what is going on. So when you talk about awareness, I think most of the time we are referring to that being aware, but then, awareness can also mean not totally different, but different aspect of that also,
Thank you very much, Rinpoche. That's great clarity on that topic. There's another question here now saying, please can you say more about the relationship of the two truths and how they relate to karma?
I mean, true truth is, usually we say that, that it's a truth, means like, it comes to the same, it comes to a right kind of a conclusion. So it's a truthfulness. But the relative truth is, if you look deeply at anything, it is true, but that if you look deeply, it's not. It is not as it appears. The way it appears and the way it is in a kind of at the ultimate kind of analysis is not same. That's relative truth. So, and ultimate truth is the way it, the way it is, you actually experience or see it, how you experience, and the way it is, it's same. So this is the ultimate truth. Now, actually, there's nothing called two truths, two different things. It's about, it's about if you look at anything, and that that appears, and it has its own functions, it has its own what can you say, results, its own, everything is there. But if you look deeply into it, then it is very relative. It is relatively true, but not ultimately true. If you understand that, then you understand the ultimate nature. So actually, the two truths are not two things, but looking at the same thing or the same object in a what can you say? If you deeply understand that what you are looking at or what you are experiencing is relatively true, that means you are actually understanding the ultimate truth also. Because you see that this is true, but only very relatively. So therefore, it's not, it's presented as true, but actually, in a way, it comes to the same thing. If you understand that relative truth is relative, that means you actually understand its ultimate nature. So therefore, when we talk about karma and things like that, so everything that appears, everything that manifests is relatively true. So therefore, karma is also relatively true. It's there. It manifests. But so therefore, it's an important thing to understand that it's very important. It's very important to understand, but also to understand that all these things are not, are true in a relative way, but not in an ultimate way. So therefore, when you understand this, then you become, what can you say? You become very caring and responsible and, aware of the functions and the what can you say, the effects of the karma, but you don't have to be so deeply fearful and too much kind of obsessed with that either, so the everything that happens is relatively, relative. It's there, it happens. It's relative, and it's interdependently there. But you also know that it's only relatively there, not ultimately there. Ultimately, actually, you are not. There's nothing which binds you, or there's nothing which totally, what can you say? There, if you realize the relative nature of everything, then you become free. You don't need to be, what can you say, tied up with anything. You are actually totally free. But, as long as your mind is, not, what can you say, is not deeply understanding this nature completely. You are totally, you have to be, you are under that cause and condition. So therefore, it's an understanding. I think you need to understand this in a way where the things happen according to causes and conditions, but in a deep way, those causes and conditions are just also a part of your way of, understanding. And if you deeply, understand and experience the true nature, these causes and conditions can be, can be released immediately. Like they say, sometimes I heard the people say that in Zen, you have to go through the gateless gate. You have to go through the gate, but it's a gateless gate. So when you know that there is no gate, then you go through the gate and there, you are totally free. In the same way, like there's a chain, and you have to break the chain, but actually, there's no chain. So, so if you understand that change is a very relative thing, and its true nature is in your perception and your wrong way of perception, and then you can understand that deeply, then there is no change. So from Buddhist point of view, actually, your purification. We say we have to purify our negative karma. Yes, we have to purify our negative karma, but then, if you have the wisdom, in one moment all the negative karma is purified. So I don't know if I'm clear about this or not.
Thank you very, very much, Rinpoche. It's a very profound subject, but for me, you brought much clarity there. The next question is it's kind of practical one. Not that all of this doesn't relate to our practice and practical matters, but this is one saying, how important is analytical meditation in the style of the Madhyamika on emptiness? How important is that analytical meditation for lay householder practitioners as opposed to those in, say, a monastic university environment?
Usually, as His Holiness Dalai Lama often talks about, the Tibetan Buddhism, or Buddhism that is in Tibet, or that came to Tibet, came from the great masters of Nalanda University, Vikramasila University, and those kind of, very, what can you say, scholars, as well as not only scholars, but scholars with meditation. So lots of analysis is not only analysis, but the study of logic is very much emphasized. And with logic, then everything is very much debated on, analyzed, and things like that. Because Buddha said that you should not just accept my teachings, even if it is, because it's taught by the Buddha. You have to analyze it. You have to really, examine it as the goldsmith examines gold, by rubbing, by cutting, by melting, and things like that. So therefore, they, they formulated this understanding. When they look into the sutras or the teachings of the Buddha, also, they formed this, what we call as the Tangdön and Ngedön. There are some teachings of the Buddha which is provisionally true, but not ultimately true. Provisionally true means that he taught this in order to lead some people. It was very important, it is very useful, it is necessary, but it may not be ultimately true. And then this is called, nowadays translated as provisional truth. Then there are other teachings which are, very, however much you analyze, it can stand any kind of analysis. So they are kind of ngedön, it's definitive. It's what it says is true. So analysis becomes very important from that point of view. And also, you can. It is possible from Buddhist point of view. It's also depending on person to person. It has nothing to do with householders and monastic and things like that. It is in Buddhism. There is nothing actually different between householders and monastics and men and women and all different kind of things. It's up to the person, that particular person. So some people might just meditate and given an instruction and then meditate on that and practice that, and then they may find actually the ultimate truth also. But generally, human beings are very intellectual. So therefore, it's important to understand. They said you have three ways of cultivating the ultimate wisdom or any wisdom. What we call listening, analysis, investigation, and meditation. So listening is actually listening, reading, study. That's the important thing is to listen to what the masters have said, Buddha has to say, teacher has to say, and read and try to understand what they really mean. This is the listening. And then after listening, then investigation. You ask questions. You try to ask questions. You try to analyze. You try to raise doubts about everything. And because if you just accept, then you don't really understand, because it's like that because my teacher said like that. It's like that because Buddha said. It's easy. It's okay. That's what Buddha said, so it must be correct. Maybe it's correct, but I need to understand. And if I have to understand, I have to explore. Otherwise, I wouldn't understand. So analysis becomes very important from that point of view. And then once you have analyzed and investigated, and then when you come to some intellectual understanding, every intellectual understanding is actually not completely, final, because it's an intellectual, it's a conceptual. So it's not experience. So therefore, we need to meditate, and we need to experience it. We need to, because however good the intellectual understanding is, it is said it is like looking at a map. If you look at a map, you understand, where this thing is, where this thing is. You understand everything and you see everything and you think that's. But actually, if you go there, that place, it's totally different. Through the map, you only see. You have an idea. You have an intellectual idea. But if you get there, you have a totally different, experience. So meditation brings you to that. So therefore, these three levels are necessary and required. That's what they say, So yes, investigation, analysis is very important, but that's also not completely equal to have a true experience. So that's how they say.
Thank you very much indeed, Rinpoche. We are past time, so I think I won't beg you for further questions. I think it's been a really, really excellent overview of this chapter and some very profound insights and some good questions following. So thank you very much indeed for your presentation. Desmond, would you like to say a few words, as this is the last of Ringu Tulku's talks on the Bodhicaryavatara?
There's only one more chapter that is on the dedication, which is quite simple, actually.
Yes, there's one to come. So we're not. Here's me jumping the gun, thinking when we get to the 9th chapter we're finished. But of course there is the dedication.
There's dedication, which is relatively easy.
It's a good example of how one can be conscious but not aware.
Yes.
Consciously speaking, but not aware that there was another class at this point in time.
Okay. Thank you very much. You don't need to thank me. You can thank me next time.